You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Sword Art Online After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Sword Art Online After Show.
Hey there, AFTERBUZZ fans. We have a very special episode of the Sword Art Online AFTERBUZZ panel today. Are you guys excited?
Oh, yeah.
Joining me on the panel today is Tauri Miller.
Makanayo.
Always my favorite thing. Liz Rishmawy.
Hey guys, what's going on?
And unfortunately, Katie Cullen can't be here today, but we have a very, very special guest, writer, director, producer, voice actor extraordinaire, Matthew Mercer.
Hi. I guess I have to follow yours and be like, yes.
Well done. Matthew Mercer does the voice of Grimlock from the episode that we covered last week. He's also done a ton of different things in the voice acting industry for Funimation for a bunch of different stuff. You're also on tons and tons of web series and video games. Is there anything you haven't done?
I haven't climbed Mount Everest.
Okay,
and I
that's fair.
probably never will, because I'll die.
Yeah, it's
I will freeze to death.
It's awfully high, that incline.
There is that, yeah. I'm good with everything else, though.
Okay, cool.
You'd be able to hear him scream if he fell off the edge of the mountain, though. Like, he has a really good projection in his voice. A lot of practice.
Really nice
He did a terrible job climbing the mountain, but by God, did he nail the scream.
Well, yeah, I gotta be good at something, I suppose.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and we'll get into this week's episode. Well, the temperature of the heart. We'll talk about that. But real quick, since we have you in the studio, we'd like to talk a little bit about your experience on the show last week. What's it like recording for this show?
Well, I for one thing, I've been a long-time hardcore gamer, and I played MMOs, and role-playing games my entire life. Everything from old-school MUDs in high school and college to the early days of Ultima Online to EverQuest, Anarchy Online, Asheron's Call. I can go on forever.
He cosplayed.
Like I have some serious geek cred here. So this show definitely already appealed to me just based on the source material and the idea behind it. And being able to play a character as kind of dark and immoral and messed up murderous as Grimlock is a nice reveal. It's been a lot of blast. Villains are always so interesting to me.
Yeah, he's not. He's, as we learned last week, he's a terrible human being.
Terrible human being.
What was it like getting into that mindset? Because I imagine it takes time to kind of develop like how you approach that.
It depends. It was a lot of fun. I especially since a lot of characters, especially around that time that I recorded this, I was doing a lot of bigger cartoon type characters or things that younger, more energetic, and so being able to step from those into a character that was much more reserved and much more calm in his sociopath type, lifestyle was great. If a girl's gonna spite you or at least not get the attention you deserve, sometimes you have to ask her to be nice to you or kill her.
Getting chills listening over here. I'm like, oh God.
It sounds logical when he says it like that. I have to ask a question, though. It bothered me in last week's episode. We got into a little stint about it. But how do you feel it was the reaction? Because basically he was all like, so I had to get rid of her. And then she was like, you never loved her. And then literally after a 2-minute rant from Asuna, he's just like, oh God, what have I done? And
it wasn't even a 2-minute rant. It was 30 2 seconds.
Yeah. How do you feel do you feel like that's realistic in the sense, or was it believable? That the character could just break down and realize that he was wrong?
I think it is possible. I think he might just be a very busy man and he hadn't time to stop and really think about it. And he's like, yeah. Oh my God.
I was so busy plotting this murder, I didn't bother to stop to think if murder was actually a good idea.
Some people just to get caught in their own head, I guess. It is plausible, though, not necessarily normal viable in most circumstances, but you know, it works with the story.
Yeah. I mean, what else is believable except for being sucked into a virtual reality world and getting stuck there?
Where ghosts can apparently exist, as we saw at the end of the episode.
Because that's the unbelievable thing. Ghosts.
To be fair, there was a little part of me that was kind of sad because years and years and years ago, I was working on a screenplay for about a boy who lost his grandmother. They played MMO online together, and then all of a sudden met her in the game, and then like the game began to bleed into the real world, and I got halfway through it, and then just didn't touch it for a few years, and then started getting into Sword Art Online and went, oh, well, I guess I don't have to worry about picking that script up again. They pretty much hit all the beats here. Okay, cool.
That's so funny.
Just like, darn it!
I know, but it's glad at least it's getting done.
Curse you, Reki Kawahara! You stole my idea!
No, I probably would have just gathered dust and never happened if he hadn't, so I'm glad somebody at least put it out there.
There you go. It worked out well.
Yeah, that was... So overall, have you watched the series all the way through?
I haven't watched the whole way through. I've watched the first 7 or 8 episodes or so, and then just been busy. But it's on my queue. I have a whole stack of video games and anime and movies that are just sitting at the front of my table in my living room that I'll eventually get to. Sword Art was easy to watch because of different conventions and stuff. They do viewings and stuff, and I have a couple hours to kill. I'll try and catch up. So that's where I saw most of those. But soon.
Soon,
I promise.
No, it's the same thing. I'm going through the series the first time right now. Tauri's seen through.
Yeah.
Liz is a little bit ahead of us, I think.
I think I'm like the very beginning of the second season. So
okay, so you're a
theme
little.
song has changed. That was my cue. The theme song has
You're
changed.
like,
There you go. Yeah.
okay, stuff just got real. The theme song's different now.
Basically, like, whoa.
All right. Well, I guess we can go ahead and start talking about this week's episode.
We're
real
gonna
quick.
get back to my buddy Matt here, and after we recap, and then we can go ask more questions. But I think the people want to recap.
All right. Yeah. Cool. So we open up on I believe what's the 48th floor, Lindas? Yeah, that's how you say.
Yes,
It's
Lindas.
June of 2024. They've been in this game for so long.
Is it like a year and a half now?
It's a year and a
About.
half, and I think in the next episode, it's officially been 2 years. So they have been in this game for so long. I can't. How have they not caught this
Those
guy?
guys in Korea that like die after like 48 hours or whatever it is without eating or sleeping don't know nothing. They don't know nothing.
To be fair,
Jeez.
I spent about 2.5 years in Outlands and World of Warcraft, so I can kind of understand.
no,
Wow,
you're
they could get lost for that long.
That's true.
Find a lot to do.
Turns out, like, they could leave whenever they wanted. Everybody just chose not
I
to.
just want to build up the reputation, with 2 different factions and get that nice epic gear. It's cool.
That's fair. So this is another episode that, like we had with Silica's episode, we don't open up on Kirito. We actually open up on Lisbeth's Smith shop.
I like to pretend it's me. I like that you looked at me like Lisbeth.
Well, she goes by Liz the entire episode. Lisbeth's
Down.
Smith shop, and we actually see Asuna. Asuna mentioned, I believe, 2 episodes ago, that she had a friend who was a smith, and now we actually get to see who that is. I'm kind of glad that they followed up on that.
She's adorable.
She is. She's got little pink hair, and she's got this cute little dress, and she has tons and tons of swords. So she's actually really good. And it opens up on the 2 of them having a conversation, and Lisbeth is finishing up a project for Asuna, and Asuna's like, I've got to go. I've got this thing, and
I have to meet
Liz...
someone.
Yeah.
Liz notices that she's wearing these really pretty earrings. She's like, oh, you better go. It's rude to keep a date waiting. She's like, totally not like that. It's totally like that,
I'm
even if
just
she doesn't
laughing
know it
because
yet.
that's the thing that she changed were the earrings. Because when I go on a date, you better notice my damn earrings.
You're telling me I got like
important.
4 or 5 pairs I could swap through.
Right?
It makes very useful.
Gotta enhance
If he
it.
doesn't mention it, it's just like, Well,
Waste.
well, and what's really funny is that it sounds like she's going off to meet Kirito.
Yeah.
And so that's why she's like, it's totally not like that. And of course, us as an audience, we're like, it's totally like that,
Yeah.
even if they don't know it yet. But
They're so awkward. It reminds me of my high school years.
well, they are high school kids.
Yeah.
That's the thing to keep in mind. Like, anytime we see something where we roll our eyes and we're like, oh my gosh, it's that. You do have to keep in mind they're still in high school kids who are thrown into kind of this extraordinary situation.
Yeah.
So all things considered, they're doing okay.
Yeah.
We
But
totally got past that out of high school.
Yeah.
Totally. Not ever a thing anymore.
If we stay in this game for 1 more year, I think I automatically graduate. So it's fine.
yeah, could you imagine?
It's like, what do you mean math? I had to learn sword fighting and kendo. And
Could you imagine, like, you miss, like, your like, 21st birthday party? You're like, I could be going out and drinking, but I'm stuck in this game.
Well, they're in Japan, so once they turn 18, I think that's
true. It's a little different.
As long as you finish like the GED quest line, I think you're fine.
Yeah, is there a way that you can get, like, high school credits within Sword Art Online?
It's a giant monster that has like a giant ruler, and she's just slapping over.
I just kind of just like stepping back and wondering what's going on in the real world right now. I'm wondering how many lawsuits are happening right now. How many like just sort of like real world things that would happen if something like kind of this grand scale disaster sort of happened. So many lawsuits.
Well, I mean, you can't sue someone you can't find.
That's true, but you can sue the company that made the stuff.
That's true. Yep.
But in any case, Lisbeth is working when all of a sudden Kirito comes into her shop and he's wondering if she makes custom orders. And she looks him up and down and goes, this guy clearly doesn't have a whole lot of money.
Yeah, I love it. He's wearing all black and nothing really fancy. Man, he must be poor.
But she's really surprised when he pulls out his sword, which is Elucinator, I believe. Yeah. Sorry, the series and names. And he wants to see if she has a sword that's like on par with that, or hopefully even better. And so she pulls out what she calls her masterpiece, and she's like, "Here you go." And he's like, "Do you mind if I test it out?" And she's like, And he slaps it against his sword, and it breaks her masterpiece in half. And just like anytime an item expires, we see it like erupt into these little polygons. And Kirito's like, I guess it wasn't that great of a sword to begin with.
I like this moment because it was like going into a museum, looking at Starry Night and putting your fist through it.
That's pretty much what he did.
That's an amazing mental. That's a great mental image, by the way. Thank you for that.
Because Van Gogh wasn't that great of a painter, huh?
Yeah.
So nonconformist, whatever. I think what we're learning is don't let Tauri go into a museum.
Apparently.
No, it's not good enough. It meets my fists.
Tauri is not a friend of the arts. Anyway, so she's clearly upset, and Kirito's like, okay, fine, I'll help you. I'll help you on your quest to get stuff to
make a new one.
Yeah, to make a new one. And so he's like, but it's probably better if you wait here. And she's like, look, there's something on the 55th floor. There's an item that's within this dragon, and you have to actually have a master smith with you in order to get this item.
So because he was just like,
to bring it with me.
No, you just get in my way.
He was literally like, you'll slow me down.
Yeah.
There's a theme.
Yeah, this is probably the rudest we've ever seen Kirito. I mean, granted, we get like snippets of it, but he tones it down with Asuna, or he's very apologetic with Asuna because Asuna will beat him into the ground if he keeps it up. So it's really kind of obnoxious to see more of this side of Kirito. Yeah. Well, we know that he's not that bad of a guy. He's just insanely rude.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I felt like this episode, in terms of his character, it should have taken place more closer to the red-nosed reindeer thing, because like he was worried about putting other people in danger. He hadn't really gotten a sense of friendship yet.
Yeah, and he's still carrying that guilt, as we'll find on later on. So I think this is the episode where he finally lets go of that.
Yeah, I would have to say the same thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure if I felt responsible for the death of several people, it would probably stick with me for probably more than a couple of years. So give him some credit that at least he's like functioning.
Yeah. We're like, he's not over that already? That was like 4 episodes ago. Whatever.
There's blood or anything. It's pretty. It's Christmas.
So then him and Grimlock can hang out then. Yeah. And they're totally cool.
Yeah.
Sucks about your wife, man.
I still wonder where they took Grimlock. I'm just like,
we don't
laughing.
really know. That we were kind of debating. We're like, did they go off to kill him? Did they take him to jail? Did they just sort of?
Well, he's our business now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, they should have locked him in a townhouse somewhere and give him cable.
For some reason, I thought when you said townhouse, I thought of a town car, like a Lincoln town car. Just like,
they gave him a town car.
He's locked in it. There's no keys or anything. It's stuck.
The AC doesn't work. No.
Grimlock's living out of a car now. Jeez.
Quick little trivia fact for you guys. It's not really a spoil. I can't say it. It's about Grimlock, but yeah.
But it's a spoiler?
Not really, but you'll see it shows his name logging out like at one point and it's like really quick, but you can't tell.
Please tell me they cart him off to jail or something.
Wait, like in this episode they do it, or you're talking about some time later?
Just don't worry about it.
Damn it!
None of your business.
That's gonna be in the back
nothing.
of. That's gonna be in the back of my mind now. Future
It
episodes.
has absolutely nothing to do with the storyline. It's
Okay.
just, yeah.
Okay.
I'm so upset. Like, thinking about it. And
Anyway.
and I'm looking at Matthew. I'm like, what do you know?
He logged off in his town car. I'm sorry.
He logs off the game and he's just driving away through the country now.
Exactly.
Jesus.
With no working air conditioning.
Because that's what he deserves. Anyway, so back to this episode. So they go up to the 55th floor, which is the Western Mountain, which is basically like that mountain in Lord of the Rings that they couldn't actually cross because there's so much snow. That's what it reminded me of. They're like, gosh, the going through the mines is a better option. It's really, even though it wasn't. But
She's
anyway.
freezing.
Yeah, it's just cold. And she's like, I had no idea that this floor was going to be so freaking cold. And so Kirito throws a coat at her, and she's like, aren't you going to need it? He's like, you don't feel cold if you're disciplined. And like walks away. And she's like, oh my God, you are such an ass. But she notices something. When she puts the coat on, she's like, oh, it's warm, which is a really weird thing to kind of think about because the coat itself is just ones and zeros. Their body in the game is just ones and zeros, but she can feel the warmth from his body heat as though they were actually there. So that's something that she kind of notices, and that was kind of like, huh. So it makes her stop and think.
Still, that whole thing, like, it really interests me because, I mean, the whole thing with feeling and senses, I mean, they eat things and things can be delicious. So even though everything's technically, like, binary code, it's actually working, hooked up to their brain or whatever part of the brain that senses or tastes or feels or touches those things is actually working toward it. So this is like, I mean, it's really impressive technology. I mean, this guy is a psychopath for keeping everybody locked in there, but he's pretty damn ingenious.
He's done his homework.
I mean, like, anyway.
No, and we've actually gotten, we've posed questions to a lot of the viewers, and people have been nice enough on YouTube to, like, answer our questions regarding, like, the sort of ways that people can or can't feel pain. And so we've gotten some kind of conflicting results on that. But thank you guys for reaching out and trying to help us out with understanding that. We really appreciate it.
We know nothing, John.
We really don't. Yeah, it kind of looked like they were up in the north on the wall.
That's what I was thinking the entire time.
Well, unlike Game of Thrones, there actually is a dragon up in the north doing stuff instead of just hanging out.
Right.
Hanging out.
Eating goats.
Attacking people.
Yeah, and he basically, Kirito basically tells her, get your teleportation crystal ready. I'm going to fight the dragon. And she's like, whatever, I don't need to be out here. And before he can kind of kill it, she gets knocked away and looks like she's falling into this giant chasm. And Kirito,
but I love that whole scene though, because she's just like, why? You got her, you want it? No! And it's just like the air from the wings or something just kind of like blew a bunch of snow or everything. And the snow, I think, is what knocked her into the chasm.
Yeah, exactly. But he goes in and tries to absorb like the impact of their fall, which, as we saw from last week's episode, a fall from a great height doesn't necessarily kill you in Sword Art Online. Yeah. For those of you who are committed to the craft of faking your own death, you do a very good job of landing flat on your face.
Yes.
And all you have to do is drink a potion afterwards, and you're
the
okay.
body's in the hospital. That's all that happens. Is she waking up? No.
It very much reminded me of like Legend of Zelda. When you do jump off of a very high thing, you land on your feet, and then like your heart gauge goes down, and he's like, "Ow, my ankles are shattered."
And if it's like really, really like low, and like.
And if you had the N64 Rumble Pack and like the thing would just like shake like nonstop, like, why did you make me jump from that?
That horrible, horrible sound. Beep, beep.
And that follows you until you can get more hearts. But it's basically like that here. They're alive. They survive the fall, but I think this is the lowest we've ever seen Kirito's HP gauge because it's in the red. I think
orange or whatever. Yeah.
And so they have a potion, and Kirito gets the bright idea. I can just run up the wall and out, and we see that doesn't really work all that well.
I want somebody to make a music video online to Defying Gravity, and like, you can't bring me down, and it just like automatically shows all these anime characters just falling on their faces. It would be great. Anybody can take that because I really don't know like video editing or anything, so go ahead, do it.
make it, tweet it at us.
Yes, please do. It would be hilarious. Anyway, so they're basically stuck there for the night, and so they're camping out because they can't use their teleportation crystals. They're kind of off the grid at this point, and so they're kind of stuck. So they're sitting there, and they're kind of chit-chatting with one another, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that Kirito said, but she said basically, "Why did you save me?" And he says something along the lines of he can't bear to see anybody die in front of them. And I think that's, harkening back to a couple episodes ago when,
Get over it.
I know. Get over it, Kirito. We're over it. You should be over it too, right?
She said she didn't blame you. God.
He needs to move on. But and so like they kind of end that particular scene with them holding hands, and just like with the coat, she notices that she can feel the warmth of his hand.
There's always a moment with he's such a horrible player, you know what I mean? Not player like game, but I mean like playa. Because he doesn't realize, I don't think, what's going on or anything. And then it's always leading with some girl either in a bed with him or close to a bed with him, just hold my hand. And it's
I feel like we've had 5 episodes in a row where just a girl falls in love with Kirito every single time. Even if it's not really, it kind of feels like that a little
crush
bit.
of some sort.
Yeah, it's a little crush, not straight up in love.
So basically every other anime.
Right.
Again. Okay, yeah. But anyway, they wake up the next morning, and Kirito has found that the item that they're looking for, it's actually buried underneath the snow. It's the crystal ingot, I believe.
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that wrong? I have no idea. Anyway, so they found it. It's just the material they're looking for to make this sword. But they realize, they're like, oh, this isn't actually a trap. This is a dragon's nest, and dragons are nocturnal.
And it's light out.
And it's morning. Huh. That's not good. And so, sure enough, the dragon comes sweeping down. And Kirito's
the word swooping.
Swooping? Swooping down.
He swooped down.
He swept?
He swept down.
He flew?
He sweeped.
Dove, guys. He dove.
Landed. It used its wings to hit the ground safely.
Before we get into this, can I talk about the fact that the ingot is poop?
I was going to skip over that. I would prefer not to talk about that since you brought it up.
Covered. We have to.
It's facts. You have to deal with it.
It's true. The item supposedly was in the dragon. Now it's not in the dragon anymore. Okay, there. We've covered it.
The
Are you
master
happy,
weapon
Tauri?
is a poop sword.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. That is great.
It is literally a crappy sword. I can't. I am so mad at myself for saying that now. Anyway, so the dragon comes.
Sword.
It is. So the dragon dives down.
Yeah.
And Kirito, he's like, that whole wall thing, I'm going to try that again. I've got a better idea. I'm going to try it again, but faster. So he picks up Liz and runs up, and instead of falling, he does a flip and lands on the dragon's back and sticks his sword in there so that they go flying up. And the force of it going up, they get flung up into the air, and they start falling down in a scene pulled straight from Miyazaki's Spirited Away. I felt where the two of them are falling and holding hands, and she's yelling at him, and she's like, "Don't freak out, but I'm falling in love with you." And he's like, "What? I can't hear you."
And it's like, I was a river. That's cool. That doesn't make any sense. They filled me with cement. What? Anyway. I love Miyazaki.
I love that. That actually is my favorite Miyazaki movie. So when they started doing that, I was like, I've seen this before.
No? Okay.
I like Totoro, but
Totoro's
Spirited
good,
Away
too.
is my favorite.
Spirited Away and Mononoke are tied for me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're two very different tones.
Yeah.
So it's if I don't want my heart ripped out, I'll watch Spirited Away. But if I want my heart ripped out, I'll watch Mononoke.
I like to think that the wolves from Princess Mononoke are also where Ghost from Game of Thrones comes from. Anyway.
That they're actually dire wolves.
Yeah,
right.
Nice.
It makes more sense. They're huge.
It's true. Anyway, so we go back to Lisbeth's shop. They're free. They're out. They can teleport again. And they go back, and she's forging the sword. And she's like, okay. I will finish making the sword, and I'm gonna tell him. And I'm gonna ask him out. It's going to be awesome. It's totally not going to be awkward in any way, shape, or form.
This has got to be it. He gave me a warm jacket. He held my hand.
So she makes this one-of-a-kind sword called Dark Repulsor. It's not even in any of the information broker's log. It's literally a one-of-a-kind. He's got the only one of it. So, and he's testing it out, and sure enough, it's a really good sword. It's absolutely fantastic. He doesn't break it in half this time. It truly is her masterpiece. And so as she's speaking to him, she's like, he's like, okay, great. How much do I owe you? And she's like, I don't need money. I was really hoping she'd just say, you could buy me dinner. And we'll call it even.
So much more smoother, but they're all in high school. They're not.
That's
you
true.
haven't developed smoothness like that.
Yeah, that's true.
You haven't.
They're not good with the smooth talk yet. But so as she's in the process of trying to explain that, she's like, I want to be your exclusive blacksmith. And he's like, what does that mean? She's like, I want to. And it's like kind of finally starting to fall into place when who should come in but Asuna. And she's been freaking out because she's like, I tried to call you. You weren't appearing on the map. You weren't, like, my calls weren't going through. Like, what happened? And she's like, I got stuck in a dungeon. She's like, you went by yourself? No, I went with this guy. And that's when, she notices Kirito for the first time. And she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, it's been a long time. It's been 2 days. How you been? And it's at that point where Lisbeth realizes, it's like, oh, this is the guy that she was going to go see.
You want earrings for him?
Yeah, and as they're bickering back and forth, Lisbeth can notice it, but they can't. It's one of those things where if you've ever been in this situation, it's super awkward to be because it's like, that there's a connection there and that, you've just become the third wheel. And that sucks so bad. The bad thing is that if she had gone for it, though, she probably would have stood a really good chance because they don't know yet that there's a romantic connection there yet. They're still just, kind of bickering like an old married couple. But Lisbeth, very, very classy, kind of bows out and she's like, she leans into Asuna and she's like, don't screw this up. I'm going to go now. Bye, guys. And
don't worry. Just take care of my shop for me. I'm going to
hold down the fort. I'm going to go cry.
Which, let this be a lesson to those people out there. There are positive elements of being assertive early, so you don't end up in this circumstance.
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, if you've learned anything from this show, it's make a move. Do not wait. Because you will miss the opportune moment. That's exactly what this was.
Make someone a poop sword and be assertive.
You were looking for the opportune moment, Liz. That was it. But so she leaves, and I guess it's just sort of the go-to place in any of the dungeons in this world to just go and cry and hide in the fetal position is under a bridge.
It's under a bridge.
And Kirito, since he's been in this situation before, knows exactly where to go. And
under
she's like, and she's like, if you had just given me a couple more minutes, I would have been able to go back to being cheerful. And he just wanted to express his thanks, not only for making the sword, but this is when we get him expressing that he really does still feel guilty. And that for the longest time, he thought it was kind of maybe better just to die than to go in like living day after day with the guilt. And, but she's the one that made him like see a little bit that no, there's still a lot in this life that's worth living for. So he wanted to thank her for that. And so the episode ends with her, smiling at him and saying, you're welcome in my shop anytime. And that's how this episode ends. I really liked this episode. On the other hand, I feel like them falling in love, it happened a little too quickly. But at the same time, this is a girl who's not really used to going on adventures, as she puts it. Right. So it's kind of like when people complain about companions in Doctor Who falling in love with the Doctor.
It's the damn Doctor. You don't question how you fall in love with the Doctor. You can come in right now. I'll go with him. I will peace out right now.
Which Doctor, though?
All
of them. Okay. I mean, well, specifically
10.
Yep.
Well, 10. I was just trying not to be so obvious.
I'd run away with Tennant, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, Tennant for sure. He'd do that Barty Crouch thing with his mouth. Anyway.
So creepy.
This is G-rated.
But all in all, how do you guys feel about this one?
Well, just to kind of touch on the fast love thing, like at the beginning of the episode, one of her first lines was that she wanted to find someone special. So I think she was just really kind of craving it, and so when she saw this person who impressed her, it was like her first chance to jump on anyone who paid attention to her.
Tauri, get out of my girl brain. That's exactly It's exactly what happens. Like even recently, I mean, I'm 28, and like through this time period between one relationship and the one that I'm currently in, when you find yourself dating or just like really wanting some sort of companionship, you're more in love with the idea itself than the actual person or people that you're, going on dates and stuff with. And now considering that she's got to be what, 15, 16?
Probably
we don't
around that
know.
age, yeah.
So obviously she's not going to be thinking like twice about it. And also we have to also keep in mind too that, it is a game where you can die. That's a dangerous world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're going to jump on that bandwagon, go ahead.
You might as well have fun while you're there. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, for what it was like a cute filler episode, and yet at the same time, he gets a poop sword, but he gets a sword that's going to mean really important later down the line in the episodes without giving away spoilers. And also, the whole thing you said, he finally came to peace with people exploding into polygons because of him. So
it's true.
What about you, Matt?
I will have my feedback once I watch the actual episode.
Yes.
I feel bad. We just spoiled the entire thing for you.
No, it's okay. Well, to be fair, it wasn't like any crazy, huge story
That's
spoilers
true.
per
Yeah.
se, and now I get to look forward to the entire journey
Except
of
for
the pooping
Grimlock
it to the poop sword. And
Logging out.
yeah, well, there is that. That wasn't my fault. That was from an outside party.
Yes.
But actually, no, I'll make sure you guys know when I watch it.
Yes.
Yeah, be sure to let us know. But okay, since that wraps it up for this week's episode, I guess we can go ahead and go into the interview portion of today's show. So,
This is where you become useful.
For once, finally, my entire life comes to this
Matthew,
moment.
what makes you tick?
Years.
So, how did you get into when did you decide you wanted to go into entertainment?
Really just being a ham growing up, I guess. As a child, I've always been into storytelling. I love good novels. I've loved good video games, good films. Like the whole storytelling element to me always appealed, and I've always loved telling stories and telling jokes, and that was just part of my upbringing. So after years of going into community theater and just getting involved in different forms of art and media, I wanted to give acting a shot before I had the responsibilities of like a family, and kids, and the point where it's harder to make those big, very difficult, risky decisions.
Yeah.
And after a few very interesting years of creative feeding myself, how do I flavor my ramen this week in my studio apartment? It's been very good. So the past 5 or 6 years have been very good to me so far.
You originally started doing some. I don't know what your first ones are, but I know that you did like various voices in like Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
And other things. So you were at least doing some really big name, anime and stuff that we've heard of. Was anime the first thing that you got into?
The very, very first thing I got into was anime, which is interesting because anime is much more technical than a lot of other forms of voiceover, because it's not just, voiceover performance. You also have to match a believable performance to pre-existing animation and lip flap. So
Lip
it's
syncing.
Yeah, it's a very technical process. And so I think going in from that route prepared me for all other forms of voiceover immediately. So it was a cool introductory point. Even though a lot of those were background voices and guys whose head explodes in scene 4, and the one guy's like, "Hey, he took my phone," that was, everyone's got to start somewhere.
You gotta start somewhere.
What's your
Exactly.
favorite thing that you've said as like a background character?
Oh man, well, I did a lot. I actually did a lot of heads exploding in the Fist of the North Star series back in the day.
I can't say the whole thing. I don't know how to say it.
Oh man, as a background character, it's hard to remember because you have a lot of like random one-off lines and stuff. One of my favorite lines that I got to say in the past few years, though, was for a Fist of the North Star video game. I voiced a character named Ray, whose fingers could cut people into like slices and stuff. His whole thing. And I guess the script hadn't quite gone through adaptation for the English script, like the producer.
This is gonna be good.
And so he charges into combat, and we're just reading through the script, and I say the line without pre-reading it, and he says, "There's no way you can stop me from getting my fingers inside you." And so the director and the producer looked at me, and I looked back at them, and we were like, we're gonna workshop that one for a minute, I think, so hold tight. That was fun.
Awesome. So, what would you say? It's been how many years now since you started doing voiceovers?
For the tiny stuff back then, probably a good 14 years.
Wow.
As a full-time job, about 7,
Okay.
7 or 8.
What would you say then is the one job that you got that was really, would you say, your breakthrough role?
I think really the breakthrough for me was Tigra and the new Thundercats.
Yeah.
Which was awesome, by
Thank
the
you.
way.
Thank
It's
you.
just amazing. I was so upset when the season didn't go on. I was like,
I know.
no.
I know. It's great. Not too many cartoon series end when the villain wins. So that was an interesting twist.
Depressing.
But no, it was a great opportunity. I got to work with Andrea Romano, who's one of the greatest voice directors in history. A lot of extremely talented people: D. Bradley Baker, Corey Burton, Kevin Michael Richardson. Like, it was just an amazing dream team of people, and it allowed me not just to get my name out there, more so to the industry at large, but I learned so many things from all those people that it's been an incredible turning point in my life.
Yeah.
I owe a lot to that show.
It's like, dude, you got to work by Terry McGinnis.
I know.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, all of them.
Yeah, no, all of them are really big names in the voice acting industry. But you've done a lot of other stuff too. You mentioned you did community theater. You've done several web series. What do you have a favorite in terms, like, do you like doing a particular kind of voice acting, or do you like doing live action? Do you like being behind the camera more, or being in front of the camera, or is it all just a great big party?
It all fulfills different types of creative interests. You know, I enjoy the production elements of projects. I like writing. I like producing. I like directing. From a performance standpoint, I really enjoy voiceover because I grew up a big gaming and cartoon geek, and being a part of that to me will always be a huge, part of the appeal. Plus, as voiceover, I get to play a lot more varying characters, whereas on camera, you're very pigeonholed by what you look like.
I love
how
what
tall
he's
you
doing
are.
right now because I'm from New York, so I do that in general anyway. But like, I mean, you look at and you view people when they do a behind the scenes look at people doing voiceovers, and it for anybody out there who wants to do voiceovers, it's not about just using your voice. Like, you're actually acting as these characters.
Yeah.
So and he's just talking and it's like you're acting as you're speaking it out, and it's like you can see the passion, and it's so great. It must be so fun.
I'm also known as a flailer. I need a personal space bubble if we're doing a group recording, or people will get hurt.
If I get slapped in the face, guys, it's fine. It's just a memory. Watch it on YouTube.
So table
watch
reads,
this
do people
face
like
again.
scoot away because they're like, he's gonna smack me in the face?
They learn eventually to do so. Yeah, it's a learning process. After the bruises fade, eventually they give me a nice
The healing
wide
can
berth.
begin.
Yeah.
Welcome to the kids' table.
Exactly.
What would you say? Now you've also written a lot, and you've directed quite a few things. One of my personal favorites. I've known Matt for a couple years through mutual acquaintances, and I actually got to be lucky enough to have a 2-second shot as a Hyrulean hobo on a mini-series called "There Will Be Brawl."
Yes.
And that was, I think, I one of my favorite things that a fan's base. I mean, go ahead and explain it. It's just too.
For those who haven't seen it, it's back in 2009, my first real foray into web filmmaking. It's a live-action film noir HBO crime drama version of the Nintendo universe, specifically Smash Brothers. And so imagine like a dystopian Mushroom Kingdom, all live-action with like prosthetics and major costumes and effects, where like, a trench coat wearing Luigi is living in the shadow of what the brothers once were. Mario has kind of fallen from grace. Princess Peach is trying to hold together her kingdom before she, of course, gets kidnapped or vanishes. All these mafia dons fill the void, while a series of copycat murders from the famous Cannibal Kirby murders from 5 years previous are starting to occur. It's a really dark, twisted
It
adult
sounds a
show.
lot like Sin City.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not kid
Super
friendly
Smash
either.
Brothers.
It's like, I'm just gonna go put it out there because I remember watching it with a friend, and the little brother of the friend was like behind him, like, "Oh, what are you guys watching?" And then just seeing Kirby with maniacal looking with teeth and some gore and some of the things they're saying.
There's a couple sex scenes in it
There's a couple
too,
sex scenes. It's just like woohoo. Yeah. Anyway, but definitely not for younger children. But it's hysterical, and it was one of my favorite things that I think I've watched. And they're only like 10 minutes long each episode.
Oh, I wish. No, there's 10 episodes, but they progressively got longer and longer.
Yeah.
Like the last episode is 35 minutes long.
I remember that.
Altogether, I think the running time is 3.5 hours. So
That's kind of funny when you start out. You're like, oh, we'll just do like 10 minutes every week, and then it spirals out of control because
Yep.
the story gets bigger than you expect.
But to point out too, this was also kind of like a little mini passion project and a lot of funding before. I mean, because you guys, it's on The Escapist, right?
yeah, the Escapists picked it up after episode. The first episode went up when we had made 2 episodes and then had no money.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the work that went into it, the hours of preparation and, running a little later than on time, but the makeup work, I mean, these were friends of yours.
Yeah,
that
nobody got paid. It was all sheer passion.
yeah.
All the money that we got from funding went towards the production. And all that being said, when the series was over, I made a grand total of negative $4,000 on the web series. So it really was a passion project. It was a lot of fun. You made a great Hyrulean hobo.
Yes. I was like, wait, ready for this? Everybody watch on YouTube, okay? That's it.
Give this woman an Oscar.
It's awesome. It's pretty intense. It's pretty intense.
Well done.
Yeah, but I'm not stalking you, so I don't know how many of these projects you've had since. Is that one of the biggest? You said it's one of the first. Has there been many since then?
We've had a few since then. I've been involved in a few of the projects. Recently, of note, there was last year a series called School of Thrones that we did.
Which is fantastic.
Oh, you seen it?
By the way, I love School of Thrones.
I couldn't watch it because at the time I had not yet gotten into Game of Thrones, and now that you just mentioned
yes.
it, I'm like, oh god, I remember. I have to watch that.
Yeah, go back and watch it. It's essentially the Game of Thrones universe, but
in high school.
Yeah, in like a 1980s kind of John Hughes high school Breakfast Club type film. And so we did 3 episodes of that, which was a lot of fun. And then right now we have on Kickstarter a new series called Muzzled the Musical that finishes at the beginning of July. July 2nd is our last day. We're almost to our goal. A lot of the same cast from School of Thrones. We have Ashley Birch, Mary Kay Wiles, and Ashley Clements from the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. We have Kevin Sorbo and Juliet Landau.
Wow,
a bunch of other great talent involved, and it's a fantasy musical that is really fun and silly and a lot of fun. So check it out.
Can you tell us what it's about?
As fast as I can say, it's a kind of a modern day fantasy world where singing, your actual musical singing ability is magical power. So to control the elements is by the power of your voice.
That sounds fantastic.
So they're like song battles, Dragon Ball Z style with music.
Yes, this is a dream come true.
However, 20 years ago there was a big battle between like the Black Hearts of the kingdom and the Royals won. All the Black Hearts were kind of relegated to the ghetto and given these things called muzzle marks. They're like arcane marks on their throat that if they try and sing, it essentially burns and tasers them. And that's how it keeps them subjugated. And the main character, Malfolia, is the daughter of the Blackheart's leader, who has been living in the society, who wants to be part of the royal society and sees these princesses and just wants to be part of that wonderful Disney-esque world.
Who wrote this?
This was written by me and Zach Grafton, the same guys who made There'll Be Brawl. This is kind of our new return to form.
It sounds
Amazing.
awesome.
Can't come fast enough.
But when she meets the actual royal society, realizes how terrible they are, and like how like Paris Hilton-esque Mean Girls that clique is, and decides to infiltrate and destroy it from the inside. And so that's kind of the basis
Through the
behind
power of song.
Yeah.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. What is the website again where they can people can listening in can try to help donate? The
You can go to Kickstarter. It's called Muzzled the Musical. You can also go to muzzledthemusical.com, and that should lead you directly to the Kickstarter. We have a fun video that gives you an example of kind of the people and the quality of the project on no budget, so let alone what we can do with everyone's help. It's directed by Sean Becker, who directed The Guild and a bunch of other great web projects.
awesome.
Check it out.
It sounds like you got an all-star team working on it. It sounds absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Goodness, what do you have in terms of like the voice acting that you've done? Do you have a particular favorite?
Oh, it's like picking children. Like, I love, there's a lot of things. I've been really enjoying Levi in Attack on Titan because I just love that show so much. I enjoyed Thundercats. I enjoyed Alvin in Tales of Exilia, which is a video game that came out last year, and Tales of Exilia 2, the sequel, which I get to play Alvin in again as well, comes out next month. He was a lot of fun. I will say I have a couple of great video game characters and some really big video game titles that haven't announced me yet, so I can't talk about it. But if you follow me throughout the year, I'll have announcements and stuff.
But good stuff is on the way.
Really, really awesome, good stuff is coming. So I'm excited.
Rhyme with.
If I said the chip in the back of my skull that they implanted would detonate.
Damn.
The last thing we want is to have somebody dead in the studio. That's just awkward.
I would just say a lot of E3 this year was really, really cool and really, really frustrating because I was sitting on a lot of non-disclosure agreements.
Oh man, and it's gonna be hard to like remember some of them as well. I can just imagine if you're working with so many projects that have the disclosure agreements. You're like,
Yeah.
You're like, I don't remember what I can and can't talk about, so I'm just gonna not say anything.
It is totally. That's the kind of thing. Like, I just don't want to make that misstep because all it has to do is hit Twitter, and all of a sudden I'm getting calls from producers saying I'm in breach of contract. I'm like, I was just excited. But yeah.
Is there any people that you haven't worked with yet that you wish that you would work with or you hope to in the future, or maybe big companies? Like, do you want to ever do anything like a big Disney movie or?
Oh man, I've done a little bit of work with Disney and I love them. They've been great. I would love to do more work with Cartoon Network specifically, just a lot of their animated department there. I love all forms of animation, and so being a part of that is great. As far as a specific individual, oh man, I would love to work with Frank Welker, like one of the greats.
That would be fantastic.
And Mark Hamill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Well, duh.
Those are the two that directly come to my mind. I've had the pleasure of working with Tara Strong a few times now, and so that was one little bucket list item off the list.
She is as amazing as I would just assume she has to be
as
a person.
And she is delightfully perverse. There is no filter on that girl. It is awesome.
I really hope every time she says something really horridly disturbing, she's doing Bubbles' voice or something.
Yeah, no, she does that. It's great.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, why she was cast for Drawn Together. Then that makes sense.
She is brilliant.
That's amazing. Do you see anything in the future that you want to be doing as far as any more passion? I mean, you're just working on this musical then, but I mean, is that ever leading to something? Or I mean, do you hope to kind of pitch a TV series or something that you've written?
Ultimately, if Muzzled does well, we'd like to take it to a larger format. I have 2 cartoon projects I've been developing for the past 3 years that we're in a heavy pitching stage right now. I have a couple other web series projects that we're talking to that I can't say yet because they're in that stage. But
Dang it.
I have 12 irons in the fire right now, and knowing my luck, a bunch of them will go off at once. A bunch are going off at once right now, and I'm just tearing my hair out. But it's a kind of problem you want to have.
Yeah, darn it, I'm too successful. Why is this happening to me?
I'm not complaining. It's just, sleep becomes a thing of the past.
Yeah.
I do have there's a film series, I think the first film, at least coming out at the end of this year, called Mythica. That's a fantasy trilogy series that I play the villain in. Very awesome, high fantasy, kind of Lord of the Rings style. I play a necromancer named Zorlok.
Nice.
And you can find the teaser on YouTube. But yeah, that one's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just laughing because I remember I was on the, when I was calling Matt to see if he wanted to come in and join us, one of the things I said was I always see on your Facebook and, Twitter and stuff that you got, you're at a convention or you're this and that, I'm like, where do you find the time? And or how do you choose that? And he was just like, I mean, I really just want to stay home, but I mean, that whole process, I mean,
it's fun. I can't complain. Things have been really good recently, and I love going to these events and meeting the fans and really kind of being involved in the community that is helping even give me a career. I have to give back as much as I can and inspire hopefully a bunch of new actors that want to come into voiceover as well and help them however I can.
Yeah, if you have any advice that you want to give for people who want to get into not only voice acting but the entertainment industry in general, what would you tell them?
To voiceover or any form of acting, and I can't stress it enough, you need to take classes. You need to train properly to be competitive, because when you decide to make it your life, your career, you are stepping into the dog pit. You are now amongst hundreds, if not thousands, of other actors that are all been training for years and years. So you have to find every way to get that competitive edge and be the best you possibly can. So you need to train as an actor. For all forms of entertainment, honestly, just be passionate, be respectful, and do the work. The moment you start slacking or trying to put the responsibility on other people suddenly will not be there and work with you anymore. So just be respectful, be a hard worker, and be positive. Be a source of positivity.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think that just about... I think that pretty much wraps up all the time we have, I'm afraid. Well,
no worries.
Thank you, Matthew, so much for coming into the studio to talk about Sword Art Online and just to give us, this really great interview. Where can the people find you if they're looking to find out more?
Well, thank you for having me. You can find me on Twitter at Matthew Mercer, MatthewMercer. You can also find me on Facebook, and I'll have cool updates coming up soon, and hopefully if those out there do the convention scene, I'll get to meet you all at some point in the near future.
Awesome.
Here's hoping, because that I really want to hear more about that musical. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Liz, where can people find you?
Hi, everyone. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lizzie Mawy. That's LIZZYMAWY. You can also check me out later on tonight for the season premiere of The Musketeers. And I'm also on the panel Dominion on Thursday nights with my buddy Tauri here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You can find me on Twitter at TauriJ. That's TaurijAY. I'm also, as Liz said, on the Thursday Dominion panel.
Yeah. And you can find me on Twitter at The Menguin. That's TheMenguin. You can also find me on the Attack on Titan panel on Sunday nights. And you can follow Katie on Twitter at KiaSJ. I can never spell it. But thank you guys so much for joining us for the Sword Art Online panel. We will see you guys next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.